Okay, so thanks for the great talk. There are no questions in the Q&A. To give Yuyao also enough time for her presentation, maybe we can switch to her, and if there is time left, we can get back to questions.
If you have any questions for Jinzhou, please submit it in the Q&A box, and Jinzhou can answer them maybe towards the end of the session. Okay, without further ado, Yuyao, yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you. It's my pleasure to be here and talk about our work on learning triplet effects and their covariate-dependent left truncation and right censoring. This is a joint work with Andrew Ying from Google and also my advisor, Professor Ronghui Xu at UC San Diego. And let me first introduce what is left truncation. In short, it's a source of selection because of delayed entry. And for example, in aging studies, age is usually the timescale of interest. And instead of everyone enrolled at the time origin, which is time at birth, people usually enrolled at various ages. And so there's the issue of delayed entry. So for example, in this toy example, the plot on the left shows the lifespan of the 4 subjects on the timescale of the study. So basically each line segment denotes their time at birth to time to death. And suppose that study start to recruit participants at time 0, denoted by the crosses here. And we see that subject 1 and 2 who already died before the study enrollment time are not included in the data. And the plot on the right shows the same 4 subjects, but now on the age scale, which is the time scale of interest. And we can see more apparently from this plot that there is delayed entry, and those who already experienced the event are before their potential enrollment times are not captured by the data. So mathematically speaking, suppose we have a time to event t, and suppose we have a life truncation time q, which is usually the study enrollment time. And we say that the event time of interest is left truncated by q if only subjects with t greater than q are included in the data. And because of this source of selection, subjects with early event times tend not to be captured, leading to selection bias. Besides aging studies, which usually involves the selection due to delayed entry, left truncation is also commonly present for pregnancy studies and also some cancer survivorship studies when there is delayed entry. And as a motivating data example, we looked at the data collected from the Honolulu Heart Program and Honolulu Asia Aging Study. And the data set contains 2,560 subjects who are alive and did not have cognitive impairment at the start of the aging study. And we're interested in analyzing people's age to moderate cognitive impairment or death. And because the data only contains subjects who are alive and have not have cognitive impairment when they enter the aging study, there is left truncation that the event time of interest is left truncated by their age at entry of the aging study. And in addition, for time to event data, time to event outcomes are usually also subject to right censoring due to loss to follow-up or end of the study. And furthermore, if we're interested in answering a causal question, for example, what is the effect of midlife alcohol exposure to late life cognitive impairment, there is also confounding that need to be addressed because this is an observational data. So we end up with triple biases, selection from left truncation, confounding observational data, and also right censoring, which may be informative. Compared with the confounding bias and also the bias from informative right censoring, which has been relatively well studied in the literature, selection bias from left truncation tend to be overlooked. And that's where our work comes in, try to bridge the gap and develop more robust and efficient approaches for handling this selection bias. So to start with, let me first focus on handling left truncation alone, and later on, I'll move on to how to generalize the framework for handling the triple biases. For handling left truncation in the literature, the conventional approaches usually assume random left truncation assumption, which requires the left truncation time and the event time to be independent, or the slightly weaker quasi-independence assumption, which only dependence on the observed data region. And under these assumptions, likelihood-based approaches were developed. However, these are very strong assumptions which may be violated in practice. For example, in the HAS data, we detected violation of the quasi-independence assumption using conditional Kendall's tau test. Under the weaker covariate-dependent left truncation assumption, which allows the left truncation time and event time to be dependent via covariates, in regression settings where all the covariates are included as regressors, Cox model, for example, can properly account for the left truncation using risk set adjustment. Well, for marginal survival probabilities, inverse probability weighting approaches have been developed. However, the IPW approach is sensitive to misspecification of the truncation model and also inefficient. So these motivate us to develop estimators that have more protection against model misspecification and also more efficient. To that end, we first derive the efficient influence curve for the expectation of a transformed event time. And then we construct estimators based on the efficient influence curve that are shown to have favorable properties like model double robustness, rate double robustness, and semi-parametric efficiency. And we also provide technical conditions for the asymptotic properties that appear to not have been carefully examined in the literature for time-to-event data. Our work, to the best of our knowledge, represents the first attempt to construct doubly robust estimators in the presence of left truncation, which does not fall under the established framework of coarsened data, where doubly robust approaches were developed. And to begin with, let me first introduce some notation. Again, we use Q denote the left truncation time, T denote the event time of interest, and Z denote covariates. And we use star to denote variables in the full data, that is, if there were no left truncation, and without star denote variables in the observed data, which only contain subjects with Q less than T. And for each observed subject, we observe the triplet QTZ. And for the estimate, we focus on estimating the expectation of transformed event time, where here nu is a given transformation. For example, when nu is the indicator function t greater than a fixed time point, theta is the survival probability, and when nu is the minimum of t and a fixed time point, theta is the restricted mean survival time. Both are very commonly considered estimate for the time-to-event literature. As for the assumptions, we assume conditional quasi-independence assumption, which requires that the dependence of the truncation time and the event time can be explained by measured covariates. We also assume the positivity assumption, which says conditional each z covariate and event time values, there is a positive chance that the subject can enter the study before experiencing the event. And also we consider this stronger overlap condition, which ensures that the left tail and right tail distribution of the event time and the left truncation time can be can be estimated well. And under these assumptions, we derive the efficient influence curve for theta, which turns out to be this constant factor times the augmented inverse probability weighting form, where the IPW term involves the probability from the truncation distribution G, which is the conditional CDF of the truncation time given covariates. And the integrand and the augmentation term is a weighted backwards martingale integral, where this backwards martingale is associated with the truncation time. And the integrand here involves the conditional distribution of the event time given covariates in the full data. So the two nuisance parameters involved here are the conditional distribution of the event time given covariates and the conditional distribution function of the truncation time given covariates. And from the efficient influence curve, we get the same parametric efficiency bound for theta. And in the following, we'll drop the constant factor and consider using this u as an estimating function. And we can show that this estimating function is doubly robust in the sense that it has mean zero if either f or g is the truth, but not necessarily both. And from there, if we have a random sample of size n from the observed data distribution, we'll first estimate the two nuisance parameters f and g, and then we'll plug in those nuisance estimate to construct an estimating equation for theta. And in practice, sometimes practitioners may have some confidence to specify parametric or semi-parametric models for the two are asymptotically linear. And for such scenarios, the estimator is consistent and asymptotically normal if either the model for f or g is correctly specified, but not necessarily both. So compared with the IPW approach, which requires the model for the truncation distribution to be correctly specified, our approach have more protection against model misspecification. And also, when both models are correctly specified, our estimator achieves the same parametric efficiency bound, and also we have a consistent estimator for the asymptotic variance. Well, although this estimator has some protection against model misspecification, when both models are misspecified, the estimator can still be inconsistent. So in practice, practitioners may consider using more flexible machine learning or non-parametric approaches to estimate the nuisance parameters, which are known to have slower than root-n convergence. In order to still achieve root-n consistency, we consider using this k-fold cross-fitting procedure, where we split the data into k almost equal-sized folds. And for each fold of data, we use the out-of-fold data to estimate the nuisance parameters and use the in-fold data to construct estimating equations. And the estimator constructed this way enjoys the rate double robustness in the sense that if the nuisance estimators are uniformly consistent, which is usually a reasonable assumption when flexible non-parametric machine learning approaches are used, and if the integral product rate of the two nuisance estimates in terms of this integral product is faster than root-n, then our estimator is consistent, asymptotic normal, achieves the same parametric efficiency bound, and also we have a consistent estimator for the asymptotic variance. So with the rate double robustness, we can incorporate non-parametric or machine learning approaches to estimate the two nuisance parameters, and we allow each of the nuisance estimate to converge arbitrarily slowly as long as the other one converges fast enough so the product rate is faster than root-n. And so far, the approach is about handling the selection bias from left truncation. And recall that our goal is to do treatment effect estimation under the triple biases. So now let me move on to how the framework can be extended for handling the triple biases. In the causal inference literature, two very popular estimates are the average treatment effect and conditional average treatment effect. And when there were no left truncation or right censoring, for average treatment effect, augmented IPW approach have been developed, which were shown to be doubly robust. And for conditional average treatment effect, there has been a growing interest recently for orthogonal learners, which are shown to have good convergence properties, for example, the R learner and DR learner. Well, for right sensor time to event data, doubly robust estimators have been developed for ATE, and orthogonal learners have been developed for CATE. Well, for in the presence of all three sources of biases, including the selection bias from left truncation, there has been methods based on regression models. And also one may consider using inverse probability weights to handle the three source of biases. But for IPW approaches, it's sensitive to model misspecifications, which makes them especially vulnerable when facing three sources of biases, because we'll require all three models to be correctly specified. And also they are inefficient. So that motivates us to develop a general doubly robust framework for handling covariate-dependent left truncation right censoring. And in particular, we construct model doubly robust and rate doubly robust estimators for ATE, and we construct orthogonal and doubly robust learners for CATE that are shown to achieve the oracle rate of convergence. And our work, to the best of our knowledge, represents the first attempt to develop doubly robust approaches that address all three sources of biases, and also the first to investigate CATE estimation for left truncated and right censored data. So some additional notations, we use C to denote the censoring time, and D denote the residual censoring time, which is the censoring time since enrollment, and A denote the binary treatment assignment. And we use the potential outcome notation, TA denote the potential event time under treatment A. And again, for the observed data, we only observe subjects with Q less than T. As for the assumptions, we assume no unmeasured confounding and consistency assumption. We also assume conditional independent truncation and conditional non-informative residual censoring, as well as positivity and overlap assumptions. So under these assumptions, we consider the doubly robust operator for handling left truncation, which maps any function in the truncation-free and censoring-free data to this augmented IPW form. And this operator can be seen from the efficient influence curve for a general Z estimate. And the two nuisance parameters involved here are F, the conditional distribution function of the event time given treatment covariates, and also G, the conditional distribution function of the truncation time given treatment covariates. Well, for handling censoring, we consider this augmented IPCW operator, which is adapted from the existing IPCW to the residual time scale to further address the complication of the truncation-induced informative right censoring. And the two nuisance parameters involved are SD, which is the conditional survival function of the residual censoring time given truncation time treatment covariates, and F, the conditional distribution function of the event time given treatment covariates. And with these doubly robust operators, our idea of handling the triple biases is pretty straightforward, is to apply the operators to address the different source of missingness layer by layer. For example, we start with the estimate defined in the full data in terms of potential outcomes. And then we take the existing approach in the literature for handling confounding if there were no left truncation or right censoring. And from there, we apply the two operators for truncation and for censoring respectively. This way we get a function in the observed data. And we can show that this procedure of handling left truncation and right censoring enjoys the double robustness in the sense that the expectation of the function is maintained up to a constant factor if other sets of nuisance is the truth. And as a specific example for estimating ATE, we start from the AIPTW estimating function if there were no left truncation or right censoring. And then we apply the two operators. This way we get an estimating function in the observed data, which can be shown to enjoy double robustness in the sense that it has mean zero if either f, the event time distribution, or the nuisance parameters associated with the three missingness mechanisms is the truth, but not necessarily both. So with that, we were able to develop model double robust and rate double robust estimators. Well, for CATE estimation, we start from a loss function in the truncation-free and censoring-free data. For example, we can start with R loss or DR loss, which are orthogonal losses if there were no left truncation or right censoring. And then we apply the two operators. This way we get loss functions in the observed data, which we call the LTRC R loss and LTRC DR loss. Here, LTRC stands for left truncated and right censored. And we can show that the loss function constructed this way maintains the NEMA orthogonality and double robustness of original loss function. For example, R loss is an orthogonal loss and LTRC R loss is also orthogonal. And DR loss is both orthogonal and doubly robust, and we can show our LTRC DR loss is also orthogonal and doubly robust. And from this loss, with this loss functions, we then construct estimators based on k-fold cross-fitted empirical risk minimization. And we can show that for the estimator constructed this way, the estimation errors of the nuisance parameters only have higher order impact on the estimation error rate of CATE. So our estimator can achieve the oracle rate, that is the estimation error rate of the if the nuisance were known. If, for example, the nuisance are estimated at faster than quarter N rate. So now I'd like to use this one slide to show some simulation result for CATE. And here we show the root mean square error of different learners for estimating CATE. In green are our LTRC-R learner, in red are our LTRC-DR learner, and in blue is the IPWS learner, which is the S learner that use IPW weights to handle left truncation and right censoring. And we can see from the results that our LTRC-R learner and DR learner has much smaller root mean square error compared with the IPWS learner. So to sum up, we have developed a general doubly robust framework for handling covariate-dependent left truncation and right censoring, and it can be applied to a broad range of estimation problems, including estimating the average treatment effect and conditional average treatment effect. And our framework can also be applied to estimating, for example, the parameters involved in marginal structural models. And for acknowledgement, we would like to thank Dr. Kendrick Lee on the helpful discussion on EIC derivation. And here are the two references for my presentation today. And we have our package, trunk AIPW on CRAN, and feel free to email me if you have any questions or comments. And finally, as an advertisement, I'm on the job market for postdoc and faculty positions starting 2025 fall. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Yuyao, for your very nice talk. We didn't get any questions yet for your talk. And I think Jinzhou has been very good at answering all the questions using the Q&A box. So we're just probably going to give it a couple of minutes to see if anyone writes any question for you.
Sure.
In the meantime, maybe I'll just ask a possibly a silly question. So in the beginning, when you introduce the left truncation, I think I get it that, you know, when you recruit people at the same time, they may have different age. But wouldn't it be automatically solved if you just you know, specify that you want, you know, certain age group at recruitment, so you only sort of you narrow down your population to that group?
You mean only focusing on people enrolled at certain ages?
Yes. Will that you know, solve the left truncation problem?
Yeah, I guess that depends on what is the target population of interest. Like, suppose that the target population is all the individuals, but then for the enrollment, because people enrolled at different ages, and so there is some, I guess, bias or systematic difference for people who are captured by the data if they enrolled early or if they enrolled late. So I guess if we just restrict to people who enrolled early in their life, then like in certain age groups, then we're losing those population, losing those subjects who enroll late, and because there's a difference between the two groups, so there may still be some bias, and I guess it depends on what is the question we're trying to answer and what is the population for the question we want to address.
Okay, yes, that makes sense. Okay, I think we got some questions, but they have already been answered by Ronghui. So yeah, I think maybe we should just bring this to an end.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Yuyao. And thank you, Jinzhou, for the nice talk.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jinzhou and Yuyao, for contributing nice talks to those areas. So for next week, we'll have Tianchen Jian from University of California, Irvine, talking about causal inference and machine learning in mobile health modeling time varying effects using longitudinal functional data, with Walter Dempsey from University of Michigan as discussant. Hope to see you all next week. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, people are using Q&A as ways of sending their appreciations.